lost both of his legs at the age of 5, and candidly recounts how he never lost the hope or the courage that he needed to overcome the incredible obstacles that he's faced in his life. His thought-provoking message is, I believe, bound to help us find opportunity in every challenge. So I'm delighted, Spencer, to hand right over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And James and Mandy, what an honor to be considered in a group with the two of you. Thank you so much for everything that you shared. And it's so interesting is that we've all are sort of hitting on the same idea here. What I want to do with our time together is just share a little bit about my journey and talk about one of the most important lessons I've learned, which both James and Mandy hit on, and that's this idea of asking for help. But before we get into that, let's just sort of address the elephant in the virtual room here and get the awkwardness out of the way. That obviously, no, your eyes aren't deceiving you. This is a new sweater. And I obviously don't have any legs. I was born with legs, but I was born with a genetic disease that caused the muscles in my legs not to work. So at the age of 2, they removed at the knee in hopes that I could use artificial legs and get around that way. But unfortunately, that didn't work out. So then at the age of 5, they were removed just below my pelvis, which is basically what you see now. Now, after my surgeries, my family and I were told by the doctors that I would never sit up by myself, that I would never walk by myself, and that I probably wouldn't be a functioning member of society. But my family and I refused to believe that. So we set out to prove to not only ourselves, but the rest of the world, that we could start by redefining what was possible for me. Now, that's a little bit of my background of how I came to be. I grew up in the United States. I live in Toronto, Canada now. Please don't hold any of that against me. But what I really wanted to talk about today is this idea of asking for help. And I've learned this lesson 1,000 different ways, and I'm sure I will learn 1,000 more. But the first time that I really learned the importance of asking for help is when I graduated from university. Now, I went to Westminster College in Salt Lake City, Utah. I got my degree in communication, and I moved from Salt Lake City to Phoenix, Arizona, because I was tired of the winter and I needed some sunshine. Now, I'm not a millennial. I'm on the cusp of a millennial. But I was chased sort of the North American dream, which is, you go to university, you get a degree, and you walk out into the world, and this is how you make money, and people are going to come running to hire you. When I walked out into the world, no one cared that I had a degree at all. So I found I had a really difficult time finding a job, and eventually I landed a job answering phones at a salon and spa that I found in the newspaper. But at the time, it was the largest salon and spa in the Southwest United States. And I thought, I'll just do this for a little bit until I can find something in my field. Well, it turns out I was pretty good at answering the phones and a lot of other things. And very quickly, I climbed their corporate ladder. I became one of their operations directors. Myself and one other person managed a staff of about 100. Now, this job, it gave me the North American dream. Money and stuff, a house, I had a dog, all the things. But it didn't light that fire inside of me. I wasn't excited to go to work every day. I enjoyed the people that I worked with, but I didn't really enjoy the job. And I thought, did I fail at life? And then if I failed at life, because this is the dream that I was sold, this is what I should want. And if I failed at life, then does that mean I'm not a functioning member of society? So for 4 years, I literally just existed, day in and day out, going to work. But after 4 years, I couldn't take it anymore. And I started to talk to my friends and family about what I was going through, and I started to ask for help. And it was in December of 2007 that a good friend of mine called and invited me to go on a volunteer trip to Kenya. Now, initially I was like, have you lost your mind? Standing on my hands, I'm 2'7" tall. I'm pretty sure that's a snack to half the animals in Kenya. And I don't want to be Meals on Wheels, thank you. And I hung up the phone. But I realized that if I was truly going to start a new journey, I had to step outside of my comfort zone and take a risk. So March of 2008, I went to Kenya. And it was a life-changing experience. But the moment that changed everything for me is when we arrived at one of the schools. And literally 200 kids came running out. They circled around me. And they were laughing and giggling and pointing and talking a mile a minute in language I had no idea what they were saying. They were eager to give me a tour of their school. And after they gave me a tour, we sat in the grass and they asked me every question under the sun to get to know me. Where was I from? How did I get here? Where were my legs? Did I leave them in the United States? But at the end, after I'd asked them everything, they've asked me everything, a young girl raised her hand. And she looked at me, and in Swahili, the language I speak in East Africa, she said, "Sukuja hiyo kitu. Ingefanyika wazungu pia." And translated into English, she said, I didn't know that this sort of thing, meaning the loss of my legs, could also happen to white people too. And that one phrase changed my entire journey. Helped me recognize how I could use my story to hopefully empower people to look at challenges differently, but also empower people to get involved with something that they were passionate about. Now, the piece that I don't tell very often about this story is that none of that would have happened had I not asked for help. Now, I went to East Africa thinking we were going to help them by building a school, and we did that, but I walked away feeling like they helped me way more than I helped them. So when I came back to North America, I couldn't go back to my normal life. It felt like an injustice. So I applied for a job at the non-for-profit that I had visited on the ground in Kenya that was based out of Canada to be a motivational speaker. Packed up my life and moved to Toronto, where I was an ambassador for the last 12 years, but I've since moved on and continue to speak full time. Now, that's the first time where I learned the importance of asking for help. And if we think about that just for a second, from like a corporate experience, we know that when we hire new folks, they're going to need to ask for help, literally, to navigate all of the things, whether that's, when we were at the office, it's sort of like, where is the lunchroom? And when do we take a break? And how do all the software work and all of those things? But there seems to be this unwritten rule that as we climb the corporate ladder, it's not okay to ask for help. And specifically right now, as we're all on an equal playing field experiencing a global pandemic, more than ever, it's important for us to take the time to find that courage to ask for help. Now, as a leader myself, I felt a bit embarrassed. I thought, well, I'm the operations director at the time of the salon. I'm supposed to have all the answers. And if I don't, that makes me weak. In actuality, it's the complete opposite. I think it shows great courage. It rallies a group of people around a specific problem, and then you tackle that together. It's important for us every single day to do our best to ask for help when we need it. Now, again, because I've learned this so many times, I thought I should probably put this into practice. And a few years ago, I came up with this wild idea because I wanted to give back to East Africa that had helped me find my heart and passion for changing the world. And they were facing one of the largest droughts they'd seen in over 60 years. So I wanted to do something. So I came up with a campaign where I was going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And I wanted to raise $500,000 for clean water in East Africa, again, who'd been facing one of the largest droughts they'd seen in over 60 years. I thought, if I'm going to climb a mountain without legs, I'm probably going to need to ask for help. So I asked my two best friends if they would come with me. They said yes. We found a trainer. We found someone to lead our expedition up the mountain. We campaigned for an entire year. And in June of 2012, I set out to climb Kilimanjaro. Now, the hope was I was going to do half on my hands and half in my wheelchair. But I want to show you what the first day on Kilimanjaro actually looked like.
This is actually easier.
No, I know.
Yeah.
It's crazy, eh?
Yeah.
Your machine, Spence.
Your machine, buddy. 30 minutes down, 300 to go.
His training was for a wheelchair. We knew there was going to be parts where you'd have to walk in your hands. But it's looking like 80-20 hands right now, which is a scary thought.
It'll be okay. Just, there's no rush. Oh, yeah. All right, man.
Terrain changes really quickly.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You think you're good for a bit, and then the next step, it's
Yeah.
just completely steep with rocks.
And we made it before it got dark.
Yes, just barely.
Last one.
So that was the first day of 8.5 days. And I remember we got to our campsite that night and we had dinner and there was still a bit of daylight. And our guide said, guys, I want you to look up over the trees. Obviously, I'm so short. So one of my buddies picked me up and we were like, it looks like a mountain off in the distance. What are we looking at? And our guide was like, that's Kilimanjaro. And we were like, what? We thought we were on it. It's over there. Now, needless to say, we panicked because this is not what I trained for, but I'm really grateful that my friends said that they would come with me because I needed their help. They were amazing at saying encouraging words like just a few more steps, keep going. It's really inspiring to watch you walk. When I felt like I couldn't go any further, they would literally carry me above their head. when there were parts where I could use my chair, they would help push me in my chair. In fact, one of the days, one of the porters who was normally carrying our stuff had wrapped me in a blanket and tied me to his back and was carrying me that way. My buddy Dave, who's in this photo here, came up behind me and he was like, listen, Spence, I'm only gonna say this to you once, but you look really cute being carried by this guy. Now, I knew that not having any legs and trying to climb the largest mountain in Africa, I was gonna need help. But what I didn't anticipate is that on summit day, the roles would be reversed and my buddies would need my help. Because around 18,000 feet, they got hit with massive altitude sickness. And I was in that small percentage of people where it didn't affect me at all. We joke it's because of my height, but I don't know if that's actually real. I watched my two best friends get headache, dizziness, nausea so much so they were literally throwing up on the side of the mountain. I literally watched my support system crumble to their knees before me. And in that moment, I thought a couple things. I thought, well, maybe this is it. Maybe we just give up and go back. Is it really worth this? And it was also the first time in my entire life, and I mean this genuinely, where I wish that I had legs that day. Because if I had legs now, I could be the one to carry my friends like they had carried me. But I don't have legs. So instead I did what my parents taught me, and that was to focus on the things that I could do. My buddies kept saying it's really inspiring to watch you walk, so I thought if that's all that I can do, then I will do that to the best of my ability. And I stood in between my two best friends and I said, this journey started with the three of us, and it's gonna end with the three of us. And this is what happened next.
Through the night, so it seems I'm not breathing, and now my dream.
We started to head up the mountain to Uhuru Peak, and that was a shock. It was snow, all snow.
I think I'm breaking down.
Remember I told you guys back in Toronto, it's going to go to a point where it's physically demanding, and it's going to go the mental push. Take those steps, those final steps. And you guys are experiencing it now.
Both Alex and Dave were really struggling. Alex was like falling to his knees.
Okay.
And every step was excruciating.
Look a little bit further.
I was exhausted. My arms were killing me. My hands were numb from standing on them. We walked so far. And I just tried to muster up everything that I had left.
Someone come and save my life.
This is for every kid that has been bullied. This is for every kid who cited disability and felt like they couldn't do things that didn't belong. This is for every person who felt they couldn't change the world. This is for every person who feel like they were lost on their journey. This is for every person who has ever tried to figure out what their life is about. I was told I would never walk or be a functioning member of society. And I'm at the top of the largest freestanding mountain in Africa. This is for you.
So hand over hand and foot over foot, we walked until we made it to the summit, and we collapsed and cried, and we're a group of women that isn't afraid to cry, and we'd actually reached well over our goal, which provided clean water to 12,500 people for life in 2 communities in East Africa. But the most important piece of this entire story is that none of that would have happened had I not asked for help and had I not offered it. Again, we're all sort of experiencing something together, and I know the holidays are upon us, and it's gonna look different. It just is. This is where we are right now, but this is the time that people talk about when we need to dig deep and find that courage. But the most important piece to actually act on all of that is when we have the courage to ask for help when we need it. I know many of us were looking forward to potentially holiday parties and what the new year brings, and this is probably going to carry over for a little bit longer. The best piece of advice that I was given and that I can give all of you as we continue to navigate is that we all have the courage and the ability to ask for help. And for those people around us that may be struggling to actually come to terms with that concept, which is very simple and we do all the time, it's also important for us to offer that help as well. So in the words of one of my favorite authors, Dr. Seuss, from the book, Oh, the Places You'll Go, he said, today is your day. Your mountain is waiting. So get on your way. Folks, thanks so much for letting me hang out with y'all today.